Welcome one and all to the DL debate. Thanks so much for tuning in now on Highland Radio or back via the podcast. Kevin, how's it going? Kevin Fury here is producing as ever. Kevin, are you in the sunbed? This man's glowing here. There must be some secret behind it after all this terrible rains go down. Listen, we'll look to cheer you up, of course. Any texts and any good news, a text, and of course 086 60 25,000 WhatsApp. Thanks as ever to Evan Borden previously for the Power Hour Plus, and of course Donald Cavan. A few news coming up in the evening show. Of course, it was a small matter of a wee kick around in Croke Park yesterday, the great contest that was the All-Ireland football final. Soon I'll be speaking to two guys who I have great time for in terms of their views, but also great guys to meet up and know. One of the best sports writers out there, Irish News, is Irish newsman Cahir O'Kane. Also joining me, Kerry legend Mike Frank Russell. Later on the show, we're going to run our views across the hurling world, the Club Hurling Championship. I'm going to be speaking to Eugene Organ, a man who's played for club and county with some honour, and of course managed St Eunan's to a championship back in 2021. He's going to tell us all that's going on there. A small matter of ladies minor final coming up. We're on about good news. Well, that's something that the Donegal ladies are looking to do for us, the minor ladies. They are playing Waterford in Kinnegad this Saturday. We have the likes of Declan McDermott's their manager, Barney Kearns, and coaching them, Tony Ball, Sean Boyce in there, Barry Dowds, of course Maxie Curran, the previous senior manager, says hard to compete at the top level when our underage isn't. So these lads have set about trying to put things in place. Fair play to them. Remember, minors, of course, that the ladies go straight into the senior, so it's a very, very important part of their development. So yeah, Kinnegad this Saturday v Waterford in the All-Ireland minor final. Get along and support them. As I said in the intro, we have the small matter of the All-Ireland final, the Colossus historical event of Dublin versus Kerry. And now I'm joined by Cahir O'Kane and Mike Frank Russell. How are you, lads?
Good, Brendan. How are you? Good, Brendan. How are you?
Great to hear you. It's good to hear you. Mike, I'm going to start with you, Mike Frank. The history, the build-up. Listen, you know what it's all about, these finals. I was trying to get my grasp on it. There was so much talk and matchups and rhetoric, but just generally, like, what was the feeling in Kerry, around this All-Ireland, the importance of it? Of course, usually we're the number one for so long, and around your time, the Dubs are number one now. Was there a bigger story a much bigger story than winning All-Ireland here? Was it trying to get back to being the number one team in Ireland again, and I suppose stopping the Dubs, I suppose, attempt of 9 medals and those wee background stories, were they a big part of it also?
They were, but I suppose, look, the media and the supporters would focus in on that kind of stuff. But for the players, they were defending champions last year, Brendan, and, we felt, they were the top dog. I suppose I got it wrong myself. I didn't think Dublin were going to be the team 3 or 4 years ago. And yesterday they came with, they beat back and they're top dog again. So look, it was a hard one to take for Kerry yesterday because it nearly puts last year's semi-final into question now when they were missing Conor O'Callaghan. The Dublin are back up there again. So look, Kerry have lost finals before. We have to get back up in the horse now again. But look, hats off to Dublin. I think just slightly they were the better team yesterday and deserved it. But disappointment, we put ourselves in a position to win the game. But, down the stretch, the leaders, the Fintons, the Kilkennys, the Howards, the Mannions, they stood up the what we've regularly seen over the last couple of years, and they got the job done. But going into the game, there was fierce build up. Probably a lot of that is with the supporters too, and the history and the razzmatazz. But look, Kerry, apart from maybe Stephen O'Brien and Paul Geaney, are over 30. The rest is a relatively young team. So look, it was a sucker punch yesterday because we thought maybe the pendulum was swinging our way after last year beating them in the semi-final. But look, hats off to Dublin yesterday. They're back up at number one again, unfortunately, from the Kerry's perspective.
Yeah. Well, listen, Mike Frank, I know it's difficult, so fair play for the honest assessment. Cahir, us neutrals, and of course you being a dairyman, you were nearly not a neutral. You could have been up there with a wee bit of the red and white, aren't you? you nearly made it, Cahir. You made a brave fist of it. But Cahir, build up to this, we wanted this dream final, and particularly with both forward lines being so heavy laden with absolute stars, maybe versus their defence. Was it never going to be that way, Cara? Did you always expect? I mean, I thought it was going to be kind of tight, maybe first half opened up, but it really was on edge. The whole match was on edge.
It probably was an edgy game, but to be honest, I think it was more to do with the conditions than the approach the teams took. Like when I saw, there was no huge surprise that Kieran Kilkenny came in to the Dublin team. I was delighted when I saw during the week that Stephen O'Brien was starting for Kerry, because Kerry were starting with 5 orthodox forwards and Dublin were starting with 6. And to me, there was no way then that either team was going to go with an approach that they were going to drop way off. And I just felt that it kind of got destroyed a tiny bit by the fact that the pitch was so greasy. The rain came beforehand and the players were visibly struggling early on to get their feet, to get their handling, and with both teams kind of so terrified of turnovers, it was the one thing that they wanted to avoid. They didn't want to carry the ball into traffic and get turned over, and it just meant that I think the game got played with a wee bit of fear of that, as opposed to ever really truly opening out. Even though there were loads and loads of turnovers, and that kind of summed it up, because teams were trying their absolute damnedest to avoid them, but they were still getting turned over so regularly. And because a big factor in that too was the fact that David Goff was the referee, and that is, he allows the contact more. Him and Brenton Colley were the two in line for the final, and they both are the most consistent in terms of refereeing the contact and allowing for the ball to be turned over in the tackle. And so that combination of factors it took a wee edge out of the game, and I'm a wee bit disappointed that I think had it been a dry day, I think it could have been a really, really good final, because the two teams from their lineups, you could see they wanted to go and both won it. And I think we just had that stripped of us a wee tiny bit.
Did you think, Mike Frank, that it's a good point about Carr? Dublin and yourselves want to attack the game. That's why teams love you so much. But then again, you have maybe the talent to do that. But there's a few, I suppose, incidents there. I felt the one maybe a Gannon's tackle on Shane Ryan. He seemed to get a bit of treatment that first half. Did he maybe look at Ryan before he hit him? There was a few, maybe McCarthy as well. It took a while for a yellow card to come. Did you think that maybe Goff, I mean, I thought he did really well overall. He tried to let the game flow is what we want. But there was maybe, from a Kerry perspective, a couple of tackles going in, you're thinking, well, that's a yellow, and it would have put people under serious pressure.
Yeah, I agree 100% everything what Kerr said there. Like, it's a pity the rain did come, because this could have been a blockbuster. It was brilliant as it was, but I think even there was one or two balls even went into Paul Geaney there in the first set, and he just nearly got it in the corner, but just skidded out. Just the skid of the surface just took it. But David Goff, to be fair, I thought he refed it very well. I wouldn't be that critical. Okay, there's one or two maybe cards. James McCarthy played on the edge a small bit. The Clifford Fitzsimons, the free in or wherever the hot ball after was a big. But other than that, I thought he got most calls fairly spot on, to be fair to him. Look, he's one of the top refs in the country. But just going back to, you're trying to pick out where Dublin won the game or where Kerry lost it. But my opinion from the start of the game, Dublin tackled really hard. They really set up their stall. They were really intense. They pushed up on Kerry once. Kerry hit the 45, whereas Kerry, I thought, were a bit passive. They left them come on to us a bit more, but Dublin really put serious pressure on the half-back line coming up the field, and they forced us down the left channel away from Clifford's corner. They obviously worked hard on that, and it was going down Darren Moyne and Paul Geaney's side a lot. But hats off to Dublin for doing that, and they tried to suck Kerry down that side away from Clifford. So, but no, the referee, I think he refed as best he could. There's always going to be one or two instances, Brendan, where maybe so, but overall, I thought he did a fantastic job, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, it's a tough thing to be doing now. I wouldn't fancy his job. Cara, just that first half, Mike Frank's talking about there, when Dublin were breaking, they looked like they were breaking, they were sucking Kerry into a better. Kerry were very methodical in their build-up. It was very much play it through the hands. There never seemed to be a kick pass on, but that's the speed at which Dublin were clogging up the gaps. And as Mike said there, Clifford wasn't in the game at all, which was perfect for them. Dublin kind of looked like they were in control a bit. Then they had the bang of the bit of brilliance in, of course, from Clifford, which had to come into the Guinea goal. There was question marks about a potential hop, but listen, I think he just about gets the benefit of the doubt. But Kerry got in at half time then, buoyed by that. You know, they must have been the happier team at half time, because I felt that Dublin were the more dangerous team in terms of the counter attack.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I thought Dublin were the better team in the first half. I thought Kerry were the better team for the majority of the second half. But probably will feel, to be fair, they probably feel in some regards that they left it behind because of the nature of the goal that they gave up. It was such a cheap turnover, such a cheap ball to give away in such a dangerous position that Dublin almost couldn't field to score a goal from where they turned it over. And there is I've been saying it all year. I put my neck out a couple of months ago. I said I didn't think Dublin would win the All-Ireland. I didn't see how they would win it. But the one thing that they had to their advantage was if they got you stripped of the ball, they're still the best team in Ireland at hurting you on the break. And I think we saw that yesterday. There was a point that Paul Mannion kicked in the first half into the canal end where Dublin turned the ball over 25 yards from their own goal, and about 5 of them broke at breakneck speed. Mannion made the run in behind and got the ball, and for a second you thought the goal was on, but he kicked the point. There were chances when Kerry stripped the ball and it was just slower. It didn't come out with the same intensity or the same numbers that they would have carried the same threat. And largely, I think Kerry, again, slightly back to the conditions, and also Mike Frank pointed out there as well, rightly, that Dublin did a lot of work on keeping the ball out of the channel that Clifford likes to get it in. I think Kerry never quite got to play the game that they wanted to play, and probably managed fairly well considering all that. But it just, the running game, I don't think is as strong as genuinely. I think Derry would have made a better fist of the conditions in some ways, in that they would have been more suited to that structured kind of game that would have broke down a team well set up in those conditions. Whereas I think Kerry were lots of one-off runners, one-up runners, and getting into tackles and then getting turned over kind of repeatedly and too repeatedly. And, for all that, they were still 3 points up and in a real good position, and looking at that stage like they were going to win it. And there were still a couple up. They kicked 4 wides in 6-7 minutes between about the 54th and 61st minute, when they looked in control and ready to just put Dublin away. Mm-hmm. They just kicked those wides, and that time Thomas Sullivan's wide, Clifford's off his right foot. Trying to remember the others, but they had 4 chances that they missed, and they just Clifford's one dropped into Cluxton's hand. Sorry, that was the other one. They just left it behind. I would say I think they were the better side for most of the second half, but the goal that they conceded just really, really hurt them.
Yeah, and the goal, Mike Frank, was listen, I know Con had rattled the bar just before it there, and Cahir's on about those periods of the game. As a supporter sitting in this, and you've been there and done it, how gut wrenching is that? Because you're thinking to yourself, you're playing Dublin here, we need to take these chances, and Jack O'Connor's quoted as saying that even after the goal there was a response, but it took so much out of the team. And in the modern game now, Mike Frank, pace and energy is so important. That's why the subs coming on are so vital. Going back to kind of the early days we were playing, you might have an odd sub coming on. Now they're absolutely vital for that energy. So it was funny that he had said that took so much out of him. Was that your feeling too, Mike, that these missed chances were they couldn't happen? Dublin were going to hit a purple patch.
Yeah, and Joe goes back to Cahir's point there. When we were coming out the ball, we were just not as pacey as Dublin when they were coming out, and as a result, Gavin White, we just dwelled on it for a second and we got turned over, and bang, it was game on. But in fair dues to Kerry, they went 3 ahead again, but we couldn't get that 4 point, what I called against Derry. We were able to do that, but maybe we were out on our feet at that stage. And then enters Jack McCaffrey, and I thought he did a lot of damage just with his legs. We ended up just having to foul him the whole time. He did a lot of damage, just I thought, to be honest. And Killian Spillane came on from our bench, got a point, but we didn't have the same impact as they had against, say, Derry. And that was probably the deciding factor then going down the stretch.
Yeah, which was the unfortunate thing about starting Stephen O'Brien, in terms of that. One other wee thing, my friend, Shane Ryan, obviously Cluxton doesn't come out. Dublin don't ever need to see him to come out. He did make a few breaks out in the first half, and I thought that might have been an action. Now, when Dublin were sitting deep, it's a wet day, you want to avoid a tackle. One way to do that is to get an overload off someone else, create a bit of problem. Do you think he could have been a bit more adventurous in the game?
Yeah, because Shane Ryan plays full forward for the club. He got a point against Derry. No, it's not. I suppose it's not naturally Kerry and Dublin's game for the two keepers to come out. But in the last game or two, Shane Ryan has been a bit more adventurous. But yeah, maybe it was an option we could have explored more, because there might have been a point or two in a game like this. Is huge. It's absolutely huge, But going back to the sub impacting, were Kerry forced to start Stephen O'Brien with Tony Brosnan being withdrawn through sickness? I think he might have been a loss too. He's a shooter close in towards the end of the game. We could have done it, maybe another forward to help Clifford as well as Killian Spillane. It's small margins. You could be talking about these things, but look, from the 60 when he went to 113 each, then as I said, even Key Murphy came on. He was an option for the kickouts for Dublin. They seemed to have the bench made a small bit more impact, I thought, for Dublin.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, there's deep discussions going on down in Kerry now, Mike, Frank. I can only imagine some of the stuff that's happening, because they will be licking wounds and probably very soon planning another attack. Just around Dublin, and I know you went out in a limb saying no. Listen, you got to do that from time to time, haven't you? You got to go out and call it. Otherwise, you're just sitting. And listen, fair play to you.
You have to be wrong the odd time.
Yeah. Even somebody as knowledgeable as you. No, I'm on record last week. Dublin by 2. Okay, so no, I should have put my money where my mouth was. But do you know what man I highlighted, Cahir, was Mannion, and I know he did kick a few wides as well as his points, but I just felt that in this game, if both teams were sitting a bit deep, that it was going to take somebody a bit rangy to be able to kick the ball over the bar, and I couldn't see anybody to match him on the other side. Now, I was surprised. Listen, he had an absolutely phenomenal game, and as I say, he still kicked 4 wides, but he did kick 5 points. Was that the key, maybe, when you break it down? Was his bit of quality from range across the two teams from what we were kind of expecting from everybody else?
I thought, to be fair, I think Mannion has got progressively better as the year has gone on, and was probably his best performance yesterday. He kicked a couple of big scores for them that they probably hadn't been getting there. One of the reasons that I thought they wouldn't win the All-Ireland was because of their shot selection and their execution was when you looked at them, was really letting them down in games. And I suppose against weaker opposition, they were still creating so many opportunities that it didn't matter. But I felt when it came to it that those things were going to come back to bite them. But Mannion really sort of had a stride towards the tail end of it, and he was, there's no doubt about it, a massive impact. And like Frank mentioned there, he's right, Jack McCaffrey was enormous in that game yesterday. Kerry did not really know what to do with him other than foul him. They couldn't really do anything else with him, and they just resorted to that. So those couple of big, obviously, returns, Cluxton's even his impact, because people shouldn't look past the 2 dead balls that he kicked, because obviously Dean Rock's career looks like it's at its end, judging by his comments after the game yesterday, and hasn't really been in the team, and they don't really have that reliable a free taker on either side. They don't have a Sean O'Shea on either side of the field. And for Cluxton, who hasn't kicked scores for I don't know when his last score was in a big championship game, to come up yesterday and nail the first point of the game as if it was total, I suppose, so much experience. But they were 2 big scores as well, in the context of Dublin not passing up those kind of opportunities that they were going to need to crawl over the line, basically.
Yeah. Listen, interesting. And Mike Frank, just looking across your team, you want to go out and play well. There didn't seem to be, maybe, I suppose, them standout players. It was very workmanlike, I think, both teams, in terms of putting in a shift. That was number one. But maybe some of your players to excel. I thought maybe Tom O'Sullivan did well. Tag Morley did well. Obviously, Shane Ryan, his kick out, I think he got 21 to 24 to green and gold men. I thought maybe Jimmy O'Connor broke even. Jack Barry probably lost his battle to Fenton. Outside of that, Sean O'Shea, very quiet second half. Stephen O'Brien did well. Paddy Clifford hit them 3 points in that spell. You'd have to say did okay. And Gainey, when I was looking at it last week, Mark Frank, I thought Gainey was really going to have a big game. A wee bit like Mannion on the other side. I thought they were the players that maybe could win or lose the game. And Gainey did well, but again, taken off. What would you be feeling on Gainey being taken off? And really, a lot of the players not really finding their best form, which was a bit similar to the semi-final as well. Would that be a bit of a worry?
Yeah, I think the Derry game, it went down the stretch as well, and 15 minutes in the Derry game, we didn't score for 30 minutes in the first half. Yes, only 3 points, and 15 minutes in the second half, didn't score. So it is a worry. It came back to haunt us a bit with being too reliant on David. I thought we could have played Paul Geaney's side a bit more, but Dublin, in fairness, they shoved us down that left side. They kept us, and they put bodies back. They cut off the channel to Clifford. So hats off to them. But you're going through the players there who play well. I suppose Dublin had that 11 or 12 players. We had the 8 or 9. They just had that few extra players that played better as on the day. I thought we were a bit conservative too. Dublin just had that extra bit of maybe off the bench to Jack McCaffrey's, that little bit extra just to get him over the line. But it was so tight. It was just, it was tight margins. I mean, God almighty, Kerry could be champions today if they got that 4 point, but they got it against Derry. But I suppose the bench impact for Dublin was slightly bit better, but I think a man who hasn't got much mentioned today either is Colin Baskell. I thought he had a massive second half. He kicked 2 points. The turnover for the goal, he worked his socks off. He set up Fenton for the lead score, and he got fouled for the Rocks free at the end. So he had a massive second half for a lad who had a quiet first half, but Baskell and as the car said there, Mannion stood up, and they probably had that another player or two extra than Kerry to stand up, and that's just the fine margins,
Yeah, but my friend, I have to ask you, the point that could have equalised it, which could have taken it to a draw, I think, from Clifford, listen, was unlucky, his radar was a bit off. The one that Cahir mentioned earlier, the one he took on his right foot, listen, the guy's a great right foot. He's an absolutely god of a left foot. You had an unbelievable left foot yourself. Would you rather there took a tiny step to your left and try and dink that, and all those tackles coming in, you get set up on your right? What would you be happier doing there? You would probably kick it over your right hand enough, but the rest of us on the weak foot.
The one thing about it was both defences were on top from both sides for a lot of the game. Yes, any scores, Dublin seemed to get, maybe those even Mannion scored, they seemed to have a little bit extra more time, whereas any Kerry scores, Dublin there's a boot down, they were hard there, and even the 2 points that Clifford got, Mick Fitzsimon was still there diving in at the last second. So I think Dave was right to shoot. Killian Spillane came on. We were looking for someone else to take the burden. So David took the responsibility. I've no qualms with him doing that. Most days they were going over. He's the type of player that he's entitled to take the shots. I don't know. I know some people say, no, work the percentage shot back around. But with Clifford, it's always on. So no qualms there,
Yeah. And Cara, where does that kind of, do you think, leave the season? Because we were talking about it, like I was talking to you way back about this wide open championship, and we were making a case for teams. Galway were kind of fancied in there as every season we get caught up in a bit of Mayo hype. After that, people were thinking possibly a Tyrone, maybe a Derry. We were saying anybody could have tilted it. Do you think that what you've seen at the weekend there means that these teams are anyway further ahead, or do you think those teams that I mentioned aren't that far off and could still challenge these sides next season?
No, I think it's very much the latter. I think it's very much that there is an All-Ireland or two there to be won by other counties over the next few years. I think we'll see a few of the Dublin retirements again. I think you mightn't see Cluxton again, you mightn't see McCarthy again, you mightn't see Rock again. And it is going to be, they struggled without them. You don't know how fulfilled Jack McCaffrey will have been by his year, given his injury troubles and actually played so little of the of the championship when he did come in. So does he stick about? You know, there's those question marks over Dublin. And they're not the team that they were. You know, they're not the robotic control and outfit that just dominated and pummeled their way to All-Irelands and nobody could touch them. They're not that team. Kerry, I actually wrote on Saturday before the game that Kerry don't look like a team that are sort of set up mentally to dominate football the way that Dublin team did. Yeah, I think talent-wise, you know, obviously they won 5 minor All-Irelands in a row, and there should be enough stuff there that when Dublin are getting pushed out of the way, Kerry are the team that are there. But I mean, Clifford and Diarmuid O'Connor will both be 25 before the end of the year. They're the 2 youngest players on the starting team. No obvious sign of on the bench where there's 3 or 4 superstars ready to be blooded in attack or ready to be pushed in. And I think Kerry's style of play, they're not as methodical and they're not as willing to go down the road of sucking the life out of a game. They want to play football. And for everybody else, you know, there's a lot of days that means you're going to get absolutely battered by them. But when it comes a day like Sunday where Clifford is a wee bit off, then they're human and there's opportunities to beat them. And I think Derry showed that they can mix it in a different way from everybody had seen them capable of mixing it. I think Galway will come back. I think Mayo will get stronger and will look at the first half of their performance against Dublin, where I thought they played by far the better football in the first half of that game, and only for making a mistake in their man marking arrangement, the corner back on Basquel, they probably would have been 5 or 6 points up. And, you know, so no, I think the All-Ireland could be very open for the next couple of years. The 2 at the top are still probably a nose or a half a head in front, but they're not head and shoulders the way that Dublin team would have been. Nowhere near it.
Yeah, well, you get McGuinness back, hey, and there'll be a few bands got back together. I think that seems to work well, Car. We'll get rid of that statement. That's the last time we're ever going to say it again. Yeah, Mike Frank, you must enjoy hearing this possible retirements. I know, listen, as a Kerry man, you want to beat the best, but listen, there will be a change over there, and whether Desi Farrell's had enough of us in a very awkward tenure, you know, in terms of All-Ireland this first year, you get no respect for it, and then the couple of semi-final defeats. You know, Cluxton will probably end up having his own chat show, would you imagine, or something like that. Maybe surprise us, you know. But, Mike Frank, just you know, Kerry, we're so far away. We're the most two furthest away counties. Like, we're looking at Dublin now. Like, there's Dublin lads there with Donegal blood in them. You know, obviously, so many of us end up in Dublin, college, and listen, you're way down there, and we're often wondering what's happening in Kerry. And Cara obviously mentioned underage pushing that. Was there this massive feeling, you know, obviously 2019, you had the drawing game, you pushed that brilliant Dublin team, they were going for 5 in a row at the time, to the pin of their collar, beating the replay. Was there a feeling that it was all out attack on Dublin, that everything had to be done from underage up? You had the strange Peter Keane era there where you tried to go a bit defensive, couldn't get the mix right, and, you know, through COVID and that, it was kind of boring football. It wasn't football that Kerry were used to. Then Jack O'Connor comes in, gives the whole thing a lift. So as you mentioned, the age range is good there, the underage. So certainly Kerry are on up and up. I mean, in many ways there could be more of a lift from this team than from the Dublin side.
Yeah, and I just read a comment from Jack O'Connor today. You know, the age profile, look, it's a good enough. It's you know, the majority team are 25, 26, coming to that right age of the prime. But look, as he said, the All Ireland, when it's still there on the line, you still have to go and win it. They're not easy won, you know. Look, I thought during the week that Dublin, they brought back Clux and Paul Mannion. I thought maybe it's hard to go back. You can't go back to clock, wind back the clock, and it was a mistake. But I was wrong. But you know, it was small margins yesterday. We could have been having a different conversation today. And if Kerry went on and got the 4 point and pushed on, you'd be saying, yeah, it was a mistake. The Kerry were right. They're going to take over now. So look, yes, it was devastating. But look, we have the county championship coming up now at the club, and there'll be young lads hopefully around the county on the 3-1 panels hoping to try and break into the team, and well, they should have the ambition to be getting in there and hopefully challenging again next year. But look, Kerry and Dublin, they're still the two best teams in the country from what I've seen, yes, and they're probably just a nose ahead of. But yeah, you have the teams underneath in the Galway. Can they push on next year? The other team, things like that, But yeah, still a bright future for Kerry and Dublin as well. I'm sure that it's going to inspire another generation of young Dublin footballers and development squads up there as well. But I suppose from a Kerry perspective, we'll be glad to see in the back of if James McCarthy, if he does retire, what a fantastic footballer, hats off to him.
Mike Frank, you don't think there's something there with the number 10 in terms of wanting to get to a 10? Would that be a thing, or what do you think?
Well, I think with Stephen Cluxton, you can never put it past him. I think the man's a genius. But look, I'm sure they said even in the commentary in the Sunday game last night and today, some of those players have come out and said it was their sweetest one ever. As the fact they've been written off the last 2 years. So look, nothing but admiration from down here in Kerry. But just one word too on the two Clifford boys. They had a tough year this year with burying their mother. Dave is 24 years of age. He's a superstar down here. Every kid down here wants to be David Clifford, and they've been fantastic ambassadors for Kerry this year, and after a tough year for them personally as well,
Yeah, very, very tough year. Very brave of them to come out and play after it. Well done to him. That was a good line he said about Cluxton. You can never put it past him. Maybe he didn't mean that the way it came out, but Paul Guinea might argue with you on that one. Cara, is that kind of the reading of it then, that these two footballing powerhouses can be caught? There's going to be ups and downs with them. Can you see Dessie Farrell staying on, Cara? I mean, if you were him, I think all of us would think, right, you've kind of proved yourself now, or the Pat Gilroy factor in the background there. To have people of his calibre around there, he just seems like, there's such good word in him in terms of maybe it was him pulled the whole thing back to Giller and got the best of Dublin as well. Not taking anything away from Dessie. Listen, he underage All Irelands and that, and was an unbelievable player himself. But should they leave Dublin, there's always that opportunity for a bit of a turnover, and those players are such core players. And Cara, listen, I was out having a couple of 0-0 stouts there in Gweedore last night, as you do, and I just caught the end of something there. They were discussing the player of the year, and they went for McCarthy. I'll not ask this to Mike Frank because I just caught Tomas O'Shea and he was outvoted, but where would you be feeling? Was he the most standout player for you this season? Outside the final, I thought it was a shoe-in for David.
See, this is it. Funny, I had this conversation this morning. I would have said a couple of weeks ago that I felt that it was going to take something fairly special to take Footballer of the Year off McCarthy at that stage. But I think the problem, in fairness, the problem that David Clifford has is that you could just, you could write his name on the bottom of that trophy every year from now till 2035, because he's going to be the best footballer in Ireland for each one of those years, and there's no disputing that. He is the best footballer in Ireland by an absolute country mile. So it's almost as if you have to kind of accept that he can't win it every year. So you have to look at those wee bits where he's maybe just imperfect, or the wee bits where he just drops a wee tiny. So, and it's probably completely unfair that he's going to be judged to a completely different standard from anybody else has ever been. But he is that exceptional of a footballer that it's nearly the only thing you can do. Otherwise, you're just going to have Footballer of the Year for 10 years consecutive and not be able to give it to anybody else. And that's right. So McCarthy, I thought, had his worst game of the year or yesterday, and was probably lucky enough he didn't get the line. He walked the line on 4 or 5 fouls, and wasn't a particularly huge influence on the game, but an influence on every other game this year, and a huge influence on Dublin. And I love him. I love the style of play that he has. I love those types of leaders that just, you can tell that he doesn't say much. I think Bernard Brogan described him in his book as our big silverback gorilla. He just does things. He leads by example, and he plows through tackles, and he makes tackles, and and I think people respond to that as much as they respond to people talking as well. So if he gets it, I'd be delighted for him. I think he's had a brilliant year, and but equally, like if they give it to David Clifford, my God, who's going to argue,
Yes,
really?
yes. He only has the four All-Stars at this stage too. I do feel sorry for him. Mike Frank, listen, we'll let you go shortly. Your only fear now would be that the Saudis come in and put a bid in for David and buy him off.
I hope not.
Has he played other sports? I suppose he doesn't really have time. He doesn't look like a guy. He looks like a guy I would say could literally do anything, basketball included.
Well, he's a PE teacher by profession, so I'm sure he's dabbling in a lot of sports with his students in the school. So, yeah, he looks like he'd take his hand to anything.
Yeah,
He played a wee bit of soccer when he was younger. He would have took to the soccer when he was a cub, and then he made a decision sort of fairly early on and stuck with the Gaelic from there. But I know he's a big Celtic fan. Like, he'd be over to Parkhead a fair bit and be engaged in it that way. Like, but I think it's there's a lot of chat about the AFL with him for a while as well, but I don't think it was ever.
Thank God he decided to stay. Yeah, thank God. Yeah.
Mike, that's not something you think he's closed the book on that?
I would think so. Yeah. He's 24 now. He's not old by no means, Jesus. But I think for the AFL, that's probably. It probably need to be going over earlier, maybe 21, 22 you'd imagine would be the cutoff there, but I might be wrong, But
I can't imagine. I can't believe they didn't snap me and you up that time we were out. Say
I'd say you would have said it right.
Maybe they seen all the carry on we were at. They were like, "No, we don't need any agents about like these."
But no, just to be there yesterday with Kerry, a fantastic atmosphere. Like, it was edge of the seat stuff. It came to the 68 minutes, 113 each, and you're like, who's going to go for it here? But the free in, it was turned over for the hot ball. Dublin went down the field, and Baskill was involved in that as well. But Finton there, Kilkenny, they just made the right decisions there. It was the clutch moments, and they had more players to stand up there. And it was just, Paddy O'Shea, God rest him, a great manager. Us with Kerry, he used to say a grain of rice would tip the scales, and I just that came into my head yesterday. It was a grain of rice that's just tipped the scales in Dublin's favour. But congratulations to them.
That's it, my friend. Listen, we'll be talking again. Thanks very much, lads, for summing all that up. That was a great chat here this evening. I'll speak to you as the year goes on somewhere down the tracks.
Thanks, lads.
Thanks,
man. Yeah, Mike Frank Russell there, Cahir O'Kane, two great men. Really enjoyed that, summing up yesterday's fair in the All-Ireland football final. Dublin coming through champs again. As I said at the top of the show, I'm going to speak with Eugene Organ now after the break, just on the Donegal Club Championship scene.
With 232 underway, it's not too late to secure your new Nissan. With the all-electric Leaf, the petrol and hybrid Juke, the new X-Trail available in a 5 or 7-seater 4-wheel drive e-Power hybrid, and the Nissan Qashqai petrol and e-Power hybrid, all available for immediate delivery. Visit iMotors in Letterkenny to find out more. Open 6 days a week.
Bingo every Monday night at the Halfway House Burnfoot. Doors open 7:30 with ice down at 8:30. €2,500 must go. Snowball is now €1,200 on 45 numbers or less. If you're not in, you can't win. That's Halfway House Bingo tonight at 8:30.
Homeowners, it's time to unlock incredible savings on your energy bills. Efficient Renewables is here to reduce your energy consumption, say goodbye to skyrocketing costs, and hello to renewable energy solutions. With no VAT on solar panels and the generous grants for both solar panels and heat pumps, see these innovative systems in action in our state-of-the-art showroom in Newton Cunningham today. Contact Efficient Renewables on 074 97 08320.
Attention all local businesses and advertisers. Are you ready to take your brand to new heights? Introducing Highland Radio's digital packages, your one-stop solution for maximum exposure.
Picture this. Stunning, high-quality videos showcasing your products or services, reaching thousands of potential customers on Highland Radio's popular social media channels. Not only that, your brand can shine on highlandradio.com with our web advertising. We've got the audience, reach and expertise to help your brand grow.
Dominate the digital landscape with Highland Radio's expert team by your side. Call us on 074 9125 322 or email advertising at highlandradio.com for more information.
The DL Debate with Sister Sarah's Letterkenny, serving food you'll love till 9 p.m. daily in Sarah's Kitchen. And there's free admission entertainment every weekend.
Yes, indeed. Wrapping up the football for the year. So it's all off to the club scene now, and the club hurling scene has been rattling on, and we're getting to the Crunch semi-finals. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by former Unions and Donegal star, of course, a man who's managed the Unions to a title as well, Eugene Organ. Eugene, how are you this evening?
Not too bad, Brennan. Thanks for having me.
You're keeping well?
Struggling away.
Struggling away, no better man. Eugene, I was just looking at, I didn't realise you were a bit of a dual player before you come back up to LK here. You were at college and you were up and down, and then you committed to St. Unions. Me and you could have played together, but you kept to the small ball. You kept your football away from me. Anyway, I didn't see you out kicking the big ball.
No, you were too much of a star. If you only fed it injury, yeah.
Well, you know what? Talking about being injured, I had played a wee bit from Burt when I was a kid, and when the hurling got started up, I was mad to come out and play a match, but Mickey Gibbons banned me because he tried to play, and I think he broke his hand or broke a bone in his hands, and he came in with a cast on. He showed it to me. He said, "You're out, you're." But of course, they let Mark Crossan play because you weren't able to tell Crossan what to do. But Crossan was a good old soldier for you as well.
He was a very athletic kind of a fella, but he kind of a fella put his head where he wouldn't put a hurley. Like, he's very, very committed. A real good guy, Mark, in fairness.
And tell me, we had another great season here at Donegal in terms of the competitive nature of 2B, and somewhere for years we couldn't be at. Eugene, has the county thing and the club thing, is one pulling up the other? How do you see the general scene now with the new clubs that have come in and the extra hurling being played around the county?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. It's a combination of very good underage structures within the county, good club structures, and then that feeds into the county. And then the county, like under Mickey McCann, a very shrewd operator, a very, very good fella, and then he's brought in coaches as well, which has developed. But it all started, I suppose, with Donegal being able to stay in 2B of the league for a couple of years, and exposure to the better teams and the better, faster type of hurling has helped, and then that feeds into the championship then and the Nicky record,
Yeah, and we're always lucky, of course, to have a few people that come like yourself from more hurling heartlands in terms of maybe their impact in terms of pulling up the players around them and that. You see, there's a big influence in Donegal where different people have come in and really helped clubs and become adopted Donegal men.
Well, that's true. I suppose Donegal has been very welcoming to lads from outside the county, our own club especially, and then Setanta had a few in there, which have had. But look, there's always been good hurlers within the county. You'll always have, in every single county, you'll have 10, 15 outstanding players. But the difficulty is that there are only 2 or 3 in each club. Whereas, down in the stronger counties, you have 15, 20, 30 players, and you can pick 4 or 5 of them. Really good players, you can pick 4 or 5 of them from each club, and then you have a really, really strong inter-county panel. But I said, Davin Flynn would be a name that we've been throwing about the last number of years. Very, very good hurler. Declan Coulter's come in there to Setanta as well. Our own Darren Malija has come up from Dublin. And look, they bring a bit more, and then lads want to kind of emulate what they're doing and be as good as them, and it just drives on in training, and that's how you become better, Yeah,
and so far this season, usually we've seen of course the powerhouse of Setanta and St. Unions racking up big scores in games. We're at semi-final stage now. Have you seen a progression from the other teams? Obviously Dunloe's in there now. You've McCool's, Carndonna, sides like that. Can you see progression with them in terms of ever getting up that level? I know you yourself in 21, it was at that stage it looked like Setanta was going to absolutely boss the Donegal club championship scene, but you just managed to pull together a brilliant season of winning, and Unions have kicked on from there as well. But for the other teams to get up to that level, can you see progression there, Eugene?
Yeah, look, there is progression. They're just, I suppose, at different stages. If you're to say at the start of the year, pick your 4 semi-finalists, we're looking at the 4 that are actually in the semi-final. Yeah. But McCool's are just at a stage now where they're developing. They're going to have to wait a couple of years to bring the younger fellas that are coming through. Carndonagh have made great strides. They become fairly competitive. Then you have Ballyshannon in the same boat. They have a good underage structure there, and there's good young fellas coming through. And then Dunloe, I suppose, out the west, they're a great outfit out there. In fairness to them, and they're keeping hurling going out there. They're just a small bit isolated out there, I suppose. And then it's really a lot of football around them. But no, the more senior teams we can have within the county, the better, because then you can start picking 4 or 5 of the best, and then that feeds into the hurling again. But look, it is what it is at the minute. It'll probably take a couple of years for those aforementioned teams to get up to the levels, I say, where the Burts, the Santas, the Unions are at the minute, Buncrana. But look, it's a work in progress, and there's been some great work done within the county and within those clubs.
Yeah, and listen, obviously it's looking like, Satanta huge favourites to get to the semi. St. Eunan's and Burt, Burt, we're waiting for this Burt team to come back. There was no doubt that it would at some stage. Like, they went through a bit of a barren phase in terms of some of their legends of the game retiring. There always was going to be that when you had such a dominant team, but they're on the way back as well. Could always pull out a performance. So that's a real exciting semi-final coming up. Is this Saturday? Is it using Friday or Saturday?
Saturday. No, Friday. Sorry, Friday evening. Friday evening it's on. It's going to be a very close game. I think the other semi-final, no disrespect to Buncrana, but I don't think at the minute they have the overall team to trouble Satanta. They met in the earlier stages of the championship, and I think Satanta won by 10 points. Missed the likes of Dexon Coulter them, so it'll probably be a similar scoreline. As for Burt and St. Eunan's, Eunan's went down to Burt and won easily in the group stage, but to me that was pure shadow boxing by Burt, because they were missing 4 or 5 of their normal starting 15, and the one thing I noticed, that there wasn't a roar out of them, not even a roar out of management. It looked like a recon mission,
right? In
my eyes. And they were just sitting back and just say, look, we'll see what you have, and we'll meet you later on the year. Look, it's going to be a very close game. Eunan's have a bit of a worry with Sean McVeigh. He picked up a hand injury there a number of weeks back, and it doesn't seem to be making much progress with it. On the other side, then Burt lost Ronan McDermott there to an injury in the inter-county scene with ACL. Liam McKenny, very reliable free taker and a good player. He's a doubt for them. Christy McDermott didn't play last night. Look, it's going to be a very, very close game, and it'll be swung on just the fitness of both panels. And if I was to say, hand in heart, I suppose, to say if both teams are full strength and the Unions are at themselves, then I would go by Unions by a score or 2, but there'll be nothing in it. Yeah.
Well, listen, I tried to ring Sean actually today. That must have been a sore hand because he didn't answer the phone. So he's listening now. Hey, pick up. Use the other hand.
Ring him private in future, I said.
What a player he's been. So this Satanta juggernaut. You think that they're still in pole position? It's going to take something amazing if they do get to the final. Whoever comes over the other side, they will be the team to beat. Using.
Yeah, looking at the year so far, like they've won all their games comfortably, and they've been missing a couple of their noted players, like Dexon Coulter especially. Like, he picked up a nasty hand injury there in an inter-county game, and like he's a massive player for them. But they have such good forwards. They have like Rory Campbell and Gerard Gilmore and Bernard Lafferty, and just to name a few. Like, they're overall they are a good team. But look, everyone can be beaten on the day. Yeah. Everyone can be turned over on the day. But at the minute, they probably are the favourites to win the championship this year. Yeah.
And you, just the overall game now, the S&C involved in it. It seems to be nearly exploding. Well, particularly with a team like Limerick, when you look at them in that final. Is that putting a lot of pressure on people to be gymming it up? And obviously the skills of hurling is unbelievable, but the power involved in it now in terms of breaking the tackle and, of course, being strong in the tackle to hold boys up. It's such a huge part of the game now, that you want to get numbers around, you want to be strong, and then you want to burst out that tackle. Like, that takes a lot of gym work. Has that put a lot of pressure? You know, county teams are going to do it, but club teams as well, to have lads just training like constantly. You know, the commitments must be huge.
They have, like, you're starting, like, the season is not over a month or 6 weeks when lads have their programs and they're back in the gym again, like, because you have to get up to a level to try and match the lads that are coming off the inter-county scene, you know, into clubs. Like, you're going to be marking, say, whoever you're marking, like Danny Cullen or Sean McVeigh or whoever you're marking, like, you know, you have to be able to match them for size, speed, you know, aggression, just sheer power, like. And it is putting a lot of pressure. It puts more pressure even on dual players, you know, because they're trying to do it for the hurling and the football. Like, every club in Donegal, maybe Setanta side, maybe one or two play with Red Hughes, but you've 5 or 6 dual players, and they're being asked to train with the hurlers and with the footballers, and they've training programs for hurlers, the training programs for footballers, and it really is. It really is asking a lot of lads, and you see an awful lot of ACL injuries and other injuries starting to younger and younger lads seem to be getting injured far more frequently.
Yeah,
and where that boils down to the strength and conditioning, or maybe they're overworking some muscles and underworking others or whatever. Like, because lads are just given their programs and told to do it themselves. You know, if you're not doing things properly, you can overbuild a muscle, and there just seems to be an awful lot more injuries. And, it maybe has something to do with strength condition. I'm not sure.
I'm just thinking, Eugene, it looks like, even at, forget about county, but obviously at senior level, if you have a decent senior team, that it's nearly impossible now to operate in both. I know legs of our own Sean McVeigh and a few lads would have done it well, but it seems as the pressure goes up, it's going to be a more harder thing to do, I'm just getting a tick from a clock here from Kevin here. The news is coming up. Eugene, that was a great chat. Sir, listen, we'll chat to you as the championship unfolds here, and we'll get your views on the champions, whoever comes through, okay, as the weeks go on.
No problem. Lovely. Thanks for chatting, okay? Bye-bye.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
it there, Eugene Organ. Kevin.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much, Eugene. Appreciate it as ever. I want to keep Kevin right here producing the show. Head of Sport, Oisín Kelly. Stay tuned for the excellent Monday night sessions. Jimmy and Paul are in the house, ready to get things rocking, and I'll speak to you all next week.
Check this.
Damn.